I'm Dylan Somerville, and I'm here today with a new video. This lighting situation is a little bit odd, so is the placement of where the camera is. It's like shifted 90 degrees because the lighting is better this way. If not, you'd have a glaring light in your face. Whether you're looking at it or not, you will somehow see the glaring light if I change the position of the camera. If you don't know by the title, I'm going to be talking about the My Singing Monsters and, to a lesser extent, Pokémon types. So, My Singing Monsters, if you haven't seen the first episode, I'd suggest watching that, or part 1. I'd suggest watching that. Even though it's a long video, if you have the time, I'd recommend watching it, just giving a quick breakdown. I'm listing every single monster from My Singing Monsters and giving them their respective Pokémon type. So it's following the same rules, like no more than 2 types, and I can only use the types in Pokemon, obviously. Those include Bug, Dark, Dragon, Electric, Fairy, Fighting, Fire, Flying, Ghost, Grass, Ground, Ice, Normal, Poison, Psychic, Rock, Steel, and Water. Ignore my short pause. So let's start today off, at least today, yeah, with the Fire and Psychic elementals. I said I was going to do ethereals, but after looking through it, there was a better number with Fire and Psychic elementals, and it kind of just went hand in hand. There are some Fire Psychic elementals as well. Yep. So let's start off with the main Fire elemental herself, Kana, which I've given Fire Rock, because she's a volcano. Literally a volcano. Funny puns aside, just to give you like some specific reasons, volcanoes have heat, fire is hot. Volcanoes are also usually made from rocks. That's why she has rock as well. Let's talk about the single element for psychic. I'm not going to be doing just fire and psychic because of the whole both fire and psychic in certain monsters, so it's kind of intertwined within each other. Just it's a list of monsters. We're talking about Theramine, who is psychic. It's the single element of psychic. You can't really give it anything else. Just looking at it and reading its bio, you can't give it anything else. I can't even think to give it anything else. Which is why it's psychic, because it can conjure mouths out of nowhere to talk for it. Whoa. Oh, also rares are also on this list, okay? All monsters, like the fire elementals without rares at the moment, are not on this list. I know some new epics have come from the natural area. I will make an entirely new video for all of those. But let's talk about the Stog, which kind of brought up the rare thing. Which I've given Rock Ground. Rock Ground, because it's a Stegosaurus. It's based on the Stegosaurus, and a dog. It likes to dig around in the dirt, which is why it's ground. And it's rock because it kind of has rock appendages on its back. I mean, you could say that's some sort of like body matter, but it, like the adult, you can definitely see how it's sort of like crystally, like rocks. It's the same kind of thing for the Tring, why I gave the Tring rock, but we're talking about the Stog, which is why I gave it ground rock. Okay, I'm taking too long on these. Let's talk about the rare, which I've given Rock Psychic. Rock for the same reason, it's a Stegosaurus, and just like in Pokemon, all of the fossil Pokemon get rock. It gets rock. But it also gets Psychic. I'm trying to remember the exact reason. It has to do with its 4 other eyes. Just, there's something psychic about it, or something magical. You'll see that there's a lot of psychic in here. A lot more psychic than previous. Also, there's a couple elements that I left out, because they don't appear. The rare version I've talked about, so let's talk about Boscus, which I've given fighting ground. Fighting because in its bio it says that it is very good at thumb wrestling, which is a kind of a form of fighting. Like that was uncanny. I should really try out for the part of Boscus. But thumb wrestling is something that apparently the Boscus is good at, so that is why it's fighting. It trains to become a good thumb wrestler from fighting. And ground because it has a close connection with the ground. Pretty much, if it's ground, it has a close connection with the ground. It has some specific wording in its bio with that. Just take my word. We're moving on to the Fangler, which I've given water, because it is a type of fish. You could say that it's water ground because it walks on the ground, but I just gave it water since, even though it's on the ground, still an aquatic fish. It can just stay above ground. The rare, though, I gave water fire. You may be wondering why I didn't give the natural on fire, but that's because the only thing that could resemble fire is its light, and that's not very fiery. Unlike the rare version, where it literally grew arms so that it can be on land, which is closer to the sun, and sun is a giant ball of fire burning away minerals. If that isn't fire because it has a close connection with the sun, it's definitely... The rare version definitely has fire. Natural version I'm not so sure about. But we're moving on to Poppet, the first double elemental psychic. Poppet I just gave steel. I would have given it steel water, but it never specifically states that there's any watery substance to it, just that its bubbles are impoppable, which I feel is a very strong type, so that's why I gave it steel. Okay, moving down on the list to Flower, which is grass. Very basic. It's pretty obvious. It's a walking sunflower. Its rare version is also grass, if that's something else. Obviously, you can't give it fighting because it doesn't fight. It specifically states in its bio that you may think it's a fighter, but it specifically doesn't fight. So it can't have fighting. I don't know why I brought that up. Just because I want you to know that I actually read the bios. Now the Bonkers, the second double elemental psychic. It's also one of my favorite plant elementals. I gave it grass. They're fuzzy thumbs that hit themselves against a tree. If that's not power over grass, I don't know what is. They're insane. It's hilarious. Let's move on to Glowl, which is flying fire. Phoenixes are very closely related to fire, which is what the Glowl is kind of based off of. And it flies, which is why it's flying. The Yuggler, on the other hand, is Psychic Steel. Psychic Steel, psychic because it can control balls above its head. Steel balls at that, which is why it's Psychic Steel. Because of the steel balls that it is able to juggle above its head and hit each other to make the sound. It's 3 balls, not just 2. I only have 2 hands. I can't really make the 3 balls. But let's move away from the double elementals and go to the triple elementals, starting with Ziggurat, which I gave rock. Because it's as hard as rock. Doesn't specifically state that, but it says that it has a very tough exoskeleton, which is kind of rock. I wouldn't give it steel because it doesn't really look like steel. It looks more like some sort of rock, or maybe even a wood. Not as strong as a metal, but more strong like rock. Which is why I gave it rock and not steel. But let's talk about Thrumble now, which I gave water, mainly because it states that it looks like a sea monster. People can mistake it for a sea monster. And also it not to be splashed by it when it jumps around in puddles. Yeah, I can't give it ground because there's nothing that specifically says it has like a close connection with the ground, nor does it say it's like an on-land sea monster. Just that it could be mistaken for a sea monster. Yeah. I mean, it has like webbed ears. It could be mistaken for a water monster. It also splashes around in puddles. I gave it water. So, we'll talk about Repetillo. Moving on from Thrumble to Repetillo, which I gave Steel Fighting. Steel because it talks about how when it curls up, it it can curl up into like an armored ball. Armor is usually made from metal. Steel is a type of metal. That's why I gave it Steel. And Fighting because it's trying to be the best arm wrestler. Arm wrestler is a type of fighting, I think. It's a type of battle, which is a fighting, and you're strengthening yourself up to be able to be the best at arm wrestling, which is why it's fighting. Now the Flugel. The Flugel is Bug Dark. Bug because it has a lot of similarities to a fly, having the 6 limbs, the big eyes, and the long mouth. Flies don't have as long of a mouth, but same idea. Although the rare is Dark Flying. Wait a minute, did I talk about why it was dark? No, it's Bug Dark. Dark because it likes to eat other people's foods. Yeah. The rare Flugel shares that same thing, although dark is its first type uh, because it's also has a lot of dark imagery to it, which is why it's dark flying and not flying dark. You can definitely tell it's flying. It has wings, and it flies around scooping up people's foods or monsters' foods, which is why it's dark flying. Okay, I think we've gotten that. So let's talk about the Wink. The Wink I gave Psychic. You need to read the adult bio because it says like the 3 things on top of its head. It can use it as like antennae or something like that to pick up like noise waves or sound waves. Sound waves, that's it. So that's a very psychic thing, very mentally telepathic, psychic. You could say those are related, which is why I gave it psychic. The rare, though, I gave normal because it talks about how it has a very glorious mustache. Is it a mustache or is it like a fur stash? Like furthers, it's getting in my brain. I'm pretty sure it says like it has a good mustache. It also likes being glamorous. Like beauty is a very normal thing, like a very human thing, normal, which is why I gave it normal, even though it doesn't look normal. All of the characteristics about in its bio state or like kind of point to the fact that it's normal. Mustaches are a very normal thing to have. I gave it normal because of all those things. Well, let's talk about the Wallaby. The Wallaby I also gave normal. For the sole reason that it kind of looks like a sheep, which is a very normal animal. I can't give it flying because it in itself doesn't fly. Just because it has tropical birds does not mean that it flies. Moving on, let's talk about the Ruditoot, which is grass water. Grass because it's a tree. Trees are plants. Grass is a type of plant. That's why it's grass. And water because it has a very like watery. Yeah, it has a close connection with water. Something in its bio states about water. Don't remember specifics, just know that it talks about it having a connection with water in some way. Maybe the water is inside of it. I don't know. You can read about it yourself. Just go online to ruditoot.fandom.com. Okay, Tapricorn is next. Another psychic monster. I think this is the first triple elemental psychic. Yeah, because I cannot see the other 2. The Tapricorn I gave normal psychic. Normal because it has a lot of similarities to a goat, which is a very normal animal, and like Capricorn, which is a normal sign. I gave it normal because it has a very normal coloring to it. Of course, with the whole like looking similar to a normal animal, you could say that about a lot of them, but just because it specifically like connects it with the goat. Like some of its nicknames are like Gruff or some of them like relate to goats. I'm talking too much about it. Let's move on to the psychic part of it. The psychic is because its horn has something to do with psychic. Okay, the waddle's next. I was going to give it normal fairy. I forgot why I gave it normal fairy, so I'm just going to give it fairy. The waddle is just fairy because its voice apparently can lighten anyone's day. It can soften your day. Apparently, its voice as an adult or as a baby sounds like marshmallows landing in rainbows, falling in um, emoja. I can't remember the exact wording. I really should have written that down. But, oh, ambrosia, I believe it's called. Yeah, like marshmallows falling on rainbows, landing in ambrosia. It's a very soft sound that can lighten your day. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. That's why it's fairy, which is, it's a very magical thing. Fairy-esque. Periscorp, I gave bug psychic. Bug, because it has a lot of bug features, having like the uh, legs, having 6 limbs. I think it has 6 limbs. And also it has like antennae, which are a very bug characteristic. And plus, like, there are some like very small Pokemon that have bug. So yeah, it's also very small Pokemon, a small monster. I gave it psychic because it can sort of like, it can like project videos from its top of its head, and it can video things. It has a lot of mental abilities. I'd say that's psychic. So, Barb is next, and I gave it grass water. Grass because it's a cactus, water because it's a cactus, and cacti are known for like being able to hold a lot of water. So yeah, I'd also, because I want to give Barb the water element it deserves. Like, in my opinion, I think Ruditoot and Barb's elements somehow got swapped. Because, like, Ruditoot seems more like it should be fire, plant, and air, while Barb seems more like it should be fire, air, and plant. Fire, water, and plant. Sorry. But that would just mean that Barb and Ruditoot would be swapped. So Ruditoot would be on Fire Haven, and Barb would be on on Psychic Island. It's no longer Fire Frontier. So, that's kind of why I gave it grass water, because it's a cactus. So let's now talk about the Ruba, which I gave normal grass. Normal because it's related to the pom-pom, which is a normal family. Pom-pom, I gave normal fairy. Yeah, it's normal because it has the whole 2 legs and 2 arms kind of gist to it. Just, if you look at my other video, you'll know why I gave, yeah. Well, that's a nice thing. Let's move on to Krilby. I think I'm missing a monster here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Aha, the Sousa. Forgot the Sousa somehow. I was wondering where the other Pom-Pom family member was. I gave it normal steel. Normal, for the same reason the Pom-Pom is normal, and steel because it pretty much has an instrument that's armor. A very metallic instrument, mind you. Well, I think it plays the sousaphone? I'm not entirely sure. Like, its name suggested it's the sousaphone. After all, it is the Sousa, although it could be something else. But still, I'm giving it steel because no matter what, it's still some sort of brass instrument. Brass is a type of metal. Steel is a type of metal. Henceforth, normal steel. Okay, let's go back to the quad elemental I was talking about, the Krilby. Krilby, I gave water bug. Water, because it has a lot of similarities to krill. Krill live in water. Then again, it doesn't look like krill, but its name is Krilby, so definitely some characteristics that have to do with krill, which is a type of fish which live in the water. I gave it bug because it has a lot of bug characteristics, like feathers, it being small. Yeah. Really had a tough time figuring out what that was, because it's really a jack of all traits. It has like feathers and like big feet. It's really just a mishmash of everything. Then again, it is kind of a forgettable monster, but it was hard to find the elements for, or the types for. Let's talk about an easier one, Edamame, which I gave grass for the sole reason that it is a plant. Usually when I give it grass, just accept it. I know what I'm doing when I give it grass. Let's talk about one of my favorite quad elementals, the Flamox. The Flamox I gave Psychic Flying. Psychic because it's very at peace, and being at peace is a very good trait for Psychic. Like, gurus are very at peace, martial artists are very at peace. It's a very psychic trait. Brain power. And flying because it floats and it can fly around. It never actually walks anywhere. Yeah, I think they talked about that on a My Singing Monsters Live, and how like they if they could walk, but if they started just walking, like their legs would just be asleep. They wouldn't be able to walk. So that's why they fly around. They're so at peace they can just like float. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to float. Okay, now going to the one that I referenced before, the Tring, and how it's rock fighting. Rock because it's hard like rock, and it has mineral deposits on its back. Not sure if that's what you call them. It has like crystals on the back, which are kind of rock formations. Hard to explain why I gave it rock. I just know I gave it rock for a reason. I also gave it fighting because it can bend steel. Well, because it says that it can bend the steel triangle. That's how it gets into the right shape. It bends the steel to make the triangle for its nose ring. And I mean, I didn't give it steel because it's just a nose ring. It doesn't really, it's not part of it. I mean, I gave it fighting because then steel would be weak against it. After all, it can bend steel at its will, so fighting would be a reasonable assumption. So, yeah. Let's now talk about the Incisor, another one of my favorite quad elementals. I really like the two newest quad elementals. They're just ringing with me. I think it's because they were the only new monsters that I've seen while playing Dawn of Fire. Like, I only really started playing Dawn of Fire about a year ago. Well, My Singing Monsters, I've been with it for a while. Dawn of Fire, I'm fairly new to it. I mean, I'm up to date. I've gotten every monster on every island. It's just, yeah, I haven't been around that long on Dawn of Fire. I mean, I'm not going to talk about that now because I'm trying to talk about this and I'm just going to go on a tangent. So let's just go back to the Incisor, which I gave Ice Ground. I gave it Ice Ground. Ice because it likes to be cold. It's reptilian. Reptilians are cold-blooded, but unlike most reptilians, uh, this reptilian likes to stay cold. And it does that by digging into the cold ground. The cold ground, ice ground. That's pretty self-explanatory. One that's a little bit harder is Snizer. Snizer was a very hard one to come on a final conclusion because it really shows all four of its elements. Yeah, it's water, cold, fire, and air. That's its composition. The water, cold, fire, and air. The ones on Fire Oasis. So, I gave it ground and fire because those are the two biggest parts. It's it's a geyser, which means that it's part of the ground, and fire, heat, is a very heated thing. I mean, if it had three, I'd also give it water, because geysers are known for the water, but geysers are also known more for being hot, so that's why it's ground fire, not ground water. Maybe I should just give it like water fire. You could really give it any of the four and get away with it. Any of the four of its elements, ground, maybe even rock. Well, except maybe flying, since flying is kind of the air type. You can't give it flying. That's really the only thing that you can't give it. But it doesn't have earth, so that kind of replaces it. Yeah, like it could be rock, ground, fire, water, and ice. I'm talking about Snizer too much. I've already given my reason. But now we'll move on to an even harder one, the Yelmet. The Yelmet took me a while to come to a final conclusion, because most of what it talks about is its decorative headdress, or its hat. It's not a hat, it's a decorative headdress. I did that in the wrong order to make the joke work, so I'm just going to fully explain it as being grass normal. Grass, because of its headgear, decorative headgear. Uh, would you be upset if you called it a helmet? I mean, after all, it is Yelmet, which is based on the word helmet. I better ask that. Maybe you could ask it. Because, like, the monster handlers haven't really asked any of my questions. I hardly gave any, so I understand why. But I wonder if a Yelmet would be upset if you called it a helmet. But its helmet is very specifically made out of wood. Especially you can tell that when you can tell it in its adult form, where if you look very closely, you can see that it's very wooden. And wood is from trees. Trees are a plant, therefore grass. And then normal, because normal is kind of the stand-in sound type. I know they're singing monsters, so sound could be part of all of them, but I gave it normal because it is fond of two things. Its decorative headgear, and its yodeling. And because there's no sound type, and yodeling is a very normal thing to do, I gave it grass normal. Took me a while to come on that conclusion, but I'm glad I had that conclusion. Okay, the Bisonorous. I gave it psychic and normal. Psychic because of the connection that they have. It's like very mental connection, how they kind of are able to communicate with each other. Although I think it's more like the Emperor is psychic because somehow it always knows what the Bisonorous is going to do. It's like in the adult bio, it states that like the Emperor and the normal one, they kind of, when they have arguments, they decide things over a game of uh, earth paper scissors, or is it earth paper scissors? And somehow the Emperor always wins. So I think that it kind of has something to do with the mind. He kind of knows what he's going to say, so that's why I gave it psychic. And then normal because there is a normal variant. So psychic is the Emperor, normal is the normal Bisonorous. The bigger one is the normal. So we'll talk about the very last quad, the Gloptic. Not well, it is a fire type and a psychic type, and water and grass or plant. Yeah. So its element is psychic. Just psychic. Can't give it water because, like, you can't really specifically take out any of its physical. It's like its physical build. You can't really tell whether or not it's like some sort of plasma or goop. After all, there's no goop type. I mean, there is a plasma element in My Singing Monsters, so if you were going through My Singing Monsters elements, you could give it plasma. Although there's no plasma type in Pokemon, so you can't give it plasma. So I just gave it psychic, because it creates gloptical illusions. And it gives you a brain itch. I'd really not want to see what that feels like. Brain itch. Oof. Enough from that. I don't want to think about what a brain itch would feel like. We'll talk about the two quint elements. First, with dromedary, which I gave rock grass. This was also another hard one to come to a conclusion on. I gave it rock because it kind of looks like it has rock parts to it, and also it's like very sturdy. And plus its adult form also has some very strong elements to it, very sturdy, like rock. Although there's nothing really pointing to it being metallic, so I just gave it rock and not steel. And then grass, because its instrument is made with wood, so grass. It also kind of looks like there's some grass on it. I don't really want to keep talking about this because I'd confuse myself even further. So let's talk about the final quint element, candelabra. I gave just fire. Fire because it's a walking candle. Can't really get any more fire than that. That's possibly why it was the very first quint elemental. Because it's on a fire. Fire is a very prominent element. Candelabra is a pretty big fire elemental. So, that's all of them. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. I will be coming out with more. Next video, I will probably do seasonals and ethereals, but that's probably just going to be a statement. Nothing factual yet. It could be. Most likely just going to be the ethereals. If any epic ethereals come out, I wonder if I should do them. I wonder if I'd be able to do them. Although not all the epics have come out yet. I really hope there's no epic ethereals. I mean, how would you get those? You know what, that's a topic for another day. I'm Dylan Somerville. Bye.